Ni mbola vinaka, aloha, mbola re, mbola sia, mbola vinaa, bunoda vangani semati o mei ina, malo mbola, dolo ngali, dolan ravi, dolo vina, noaye mauri, vinaka bakalevu na semati kumai na kai vinaka ni singa ni kua. Tos chungana nonda vitala no bakir nanda bola I bola. Na kera baka na numitiko na nonda bosa na itoke. Fijian Language Week 2023. Happy Fijian Language Week to everyone listening in today. Vinakabakalebu na naman ni bakarorongo mai and wait tala no totokongo. Baka pulsar juga tegerua. We Elisabetta Wanga, Elisabetta. I know you're making love right now, but please listen to me and Paddy. We are here right now about to share our story for this afternoon session on celebrating the beautiful language Fijian Language Week. Nakabale week ni nando siya matikumay, nando wito ko nitikumay na program mungo. Iya, me bakau ni kilati ko kini bakarau ni sibarangan tikbuna ni Robitala no kay Paddy Ryan. Bungo bikim ni kilay ko binaka turangan do bola-bola, turangan do wuniwai ni bekay tubak bola-bola tikenda susunga may biti. Da marutaka ni tuira na wakanda bakaongo era sulitu na nonra yau na nonra ngau na kena nonra kilaka me bola tuku-tuku taki na kenda tuku-tuku makawa kena tuku-tuku membaleta na nonda yau bola ya satana bakarong sarani kena share totok na dola ngata tiko na bei madao na bonondo moni au nitaka ni na marutaka na share ongo ni bola betaka.
Sai viti lomani na
Sa rongo binaka dia na serea vanua do moni. Binaka baka leo bikem ni na baka rongo tiku mai. Baka mbula tiku ani bikem ni kan sara na sema tiku mai na bese biti na bese bura-bura. Baka mbula sara tiku bikem ni na sema tiku mita biuni. Mbula binaa bikem do na sema tiku mai bibuna pono lebu. Mai bua mai na sana baka turango maduwata. Baka tulu saka tiku ani bikem ni kan sara na biwa kanya na tiku ni baka rongo tiku mikina. E na nero na may bitala nongo kendo na turanga sa suletu na nona bula to doko na na kila ka kina nona yau na kena bola tuku tai kina nona yau bula na o bewe kani na nona vanua ibiti ya sa na baka bula sarango wa thank you so much Paddy for taking your time away from your busy schedule. I know you are a very busy gentleman and you look really lovely with your shirt, by the way, Paddy.
Thanks. It was a gift from a friend of mine in Taviuni, and I thought I'd wear it tonight in honor of that occasion. Yeah.
Oh,
Lovely to see you
Vinaka. Would
again.
you like to say hello to our listeners right now, Paddy?
Yes, I would. Bulla, everybody. And I want to say now, Toso Viti Toso. I'll be watching on Saturday. Saturday? Yeah, my Saturday, your Sunday. Yeah. It's going to be a good game.
Oh, Vinaka Vakalevu.
No,
Thank you so
I learned to play rugby in Fiji.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about your rugby history in Fiji, Paddy.
Oh, Nandi Airport School. Yeah, we played against some of the local village teams. Always got
Wow.
beaten, but I had a lot of fun.
Oh, Vinaka for supporting the Fiji team. So to our Fiji rugby team, if you're listening in from France or watching this interview, we wish you all the very best. We know it's going to be an amazing quarterfinal. And we know, both of us, me and Paddy, we know you can thrash England. What do you think, Paddy?
I think they'll do it. I think they will. If they play their natural game instead of trying to play to England's, I mean, the best running team in world rugby, they've got to play to their strengths. If they do silly kicks down the middle of the field, England will gain all the territory and it will be game over.
Yeah, Nasaranga, absolutely.
We're all
Yeah,
rugby
because
experts now, right? Or think we are.
and I'm sure Elisabetta has something to say to that. Elisabetta, if you're listening, she's also a good commentator. Nakavalevo maramayano au klanio ongonga tartu magalevo na vakalovo and Silvia nakanikua. Paddy, would you like to say a little bit about your family background? Because many of us, we know you have a very deep connection to Fiji. What made you and your family come to Fiji?
Well, my parents moved. My father was a meteorologist, a weatherman, and he worked for the New Zealand Meteorological Service. And at that time, the Fiji Weather Office was being run from New Zealand. And so he got seconded to Nandi Airport. And we stayed in Fiji for 4 years. And I swam my first mile by the time I was 8 years old. And I was snorkeling by the time I was 8. And I just fell in love with the reef, and I fell in love with Fiji and Fijians, and it made an indelible impression on me. And then we went back to New Zealand, and I did my secondary schooling. And then eventually I did a doctorate at the University of Canterbury, and I had never forgotten my childhood days in Fiji, and all I really wanted to do was to work in Fiji. So I applied 3 times. First 2 times to the USP, I was turned down. Third time I was lucky, and I taught at USP for 10.5 years. And in many respects, I regret leaving. But the second of the coups and the lack of specialist doctors, because my wife was pregnant with our second child, Lucy, made it difficult for us to stay. So, but I've been back almost every year since, and you know, you have, what is it you can say? You can take the boy out of Fiji, but you can't take Fiji out of the boy. I hope that's true.
It's absolutely true, and I think you you are one example of that, and we just admire your dedication to Fiji. And I was speaking the Fijian language earlier on, saying that you are someone that have dedicated your life, your time, your energy, your resources, your money for the sake of Fiji's natural heritage, flora and fauna. And
Yep.
I've seen the book you have put together before, and that is the reason why we're here today. And I decided to invite different writers and authors this week because we are celebrating Fijian Language Week. But then I wanted to take the Fijian Language Week on another level because this year is 10 years of celebrating it because New Zealand started it. So thanks to Aotearoa for starting this initiative.
Could you give me just 5 seconds? I'm going to leave the camera and I'll be right back.
Sure.
Hold on.
Okay. Vinaka vakalevi kimni na sema tiku mai marutaka na nomini vakarorongo mai na norosuriti tiku mai vida na notobulagi na madongo ena ken maruteki tiko na madaoni wasavakaviti tiku bube go sa tu sarangona no nei bola mena baritaka ni vikimni.
So a lot of people don't know this book exists. It's the Fiji language edition of Fiji's Natural Heritage. And a copy was supposed to go to every school in Fiji, but very sadly, the person that was supposed to distribute them to the Ministry of Education basically stole them. So they never got out to where they were meant to go. And that's one of my biggest regrets because it's all very well having a book in English, that's sort of kind of like, the scientists, the oppressors writing in their language. Mm-hmm. But if you can have it in Fijian and get it into primary schools early so kids get a chance to look at it in Fijian, I think it engenders a much greater awareness and pride than if it's just in English. So I really want the new edition to be translated into Fijian as well.
Yes, you actually bring out a very important point, the importance of language, since we are celebrating the Fijian Language Week, and you have done the translation of that book. That's really amazing. But
oh no, I haven't done it. Paul Garrity did the translation.
Right. So do you think we still can get it out, even though you hit the snag there? Can we be able to still get them out to schools?
Nobody knows where the copies are that were published in 2001, but I still don't have funding for the third edition of the book yet. If I get it, I'm going to apply in two parts. I'm going to apply initially to get it published in English, then I'm going to apply to get it translated and published in Fijian as well. And I'm hoping that I have all of the major NGOs, environmental NGOs behind me. I had a meeting with Conservation International, World Wide Fund for Nature, Nature Fiji, BirdLife International, and they were all very supportive. So I'm really excited that we may be able to make this happen.
Someone that I was thinking that they would be able to fund the printing and the translation or any other work that needs to be done for the Fijian version of the book would be the Tauke Trust Fund. They have funding that can fit really into that area that you need there, Paddy.
That would be totally fantastic. I mean, somebody said to me a little while ago, and I was a bit taken aback when they said it, but they said, "This is really your life's work, isn't it?" And I went, "Shit, you're right." And I'm getting on a bit in years these days. I stay pretty fit, fortunately. I'm a part-time personal trainer. But my greatest dream is to see this book published in both English and Fijian, many years before I die.
And I know there will be our colleagues who are watching this Talanoa session who may be able to guide us in towards the funding. But I have contacts there, and I can be able to connect you after this interview because I believe that book needs to get out to schools.
Oh, that's just fabulous. I'm really excited by that possibility. And the thing that excites me is that, if you think about Fijians these days, although a lot of Fijians still live in villages, many of them are in towns and cities. And in some ways that they're losing contact with their own heritage. And, I never forgot when I first came to Fiji, I wanted to go into Talanoa to look for frogs, tree frogs. And one of the forestry guys there said, "Oh, there's no frogs in Fiji, just toads." I said, "No, there's a Fiji tree frog." And he didn't believe me. And you're not going to believe this story because it's just too good to be true. But I got permission to chop down a voi in Talanoa. So we went up there and bought a chainsaw, chopped down the tree. And as it fell, this tree frog jumped out of the tree. And I'm not making this up. It landed on his forehead. It landed right there. It went splat on his forehead. And he went, "Sir, frogs in Fiji, frogs in Fiji." And it was the first time he ever knew, So a lot of people who live inland, of course, know a lot of the forest stuff, but they don't know all the reef stuff. So coastal people know a lot of the reef stuff, but they don't necessarily know the forest stuff. So it's kind of good to show that to them because Fiji's got some amazing things. It really does.
Wow.
Sorry, I got a bit excited then.
Please, no, we're not live, for I just really admire, the dedication you have for these amazing resources. And I remember seeing your book at the Fiji Museum gift shop. And I just love, the cover and the content. And I didn't realize to connect, when I heard your name, the very first time it clicked because I remember reading your book and I connected the two and I'm thinking, yeah, this is the same guy, that put that book together. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, Paddy. How many years did it take you to put the first edition of the book?
Good question. I arrived in Fiji in 78. And when I first got there, I'd point to one of the butterflies flying around USP grounds and I'd say, "What's that butterfly?" And even my colleagues didn't know. And so one of the problems with USP then, and I don't know if it's still the case, but people were mostly expats working there. They were on 3-year contracts. They would learn what they knew about Fiji, and then unless they published, they would just go away and their knowledge went away with them. And I thought that was tragic. So I thought, well, I'll just try and put together a book so that at least we'll have some source of information. Of course, things have improved out of sight. One of my biggest dreams when I was teaching there was to have my students ultimately replace me. And I'm pleased to say that they have. And their students are now doing extraordinarily great work in Fiji. The rapid assessment program teams that they've got out there, going out into the forest and the streams and finding out what species are there. Absolutely awesome stuff. And, it's made my life complete in many ways to see this happening.
Wow, that's wonderful. Glad to see the succession planning in that regard, to empower the younger ones, coming up. And would Nunia Moko be one of those, or maybe your young ones that you
Nunia Moko would definitely be one of those. And people like Bendia Rashni that's been doing a lot of work on fresh waters. And of course, not just USP people either. We both know Vilakesa Masambalavu, who's now a world-renowned ornithologist and done a lot of really good stuff. So, it's putting together a book like that goes back a long way. You rely on a lot of research by a lot of people, and I think it's really important to acknowledge them. Do you mind if I just mention a few names? Is that okay?
Go for it. Yes.
Well, thank you. We lost Fergus Clooney as director of the Fiji Museum years ago, and that was a huge loss to Fiji because Fergus had an incredible knowledge and he was very willing to share it. Dick Watling, of course, has done three books on Fiji, and his book on birds of the Western Pacific, is the ornithological text. And he also did an incredible book on the palms of Fiji. Randy Thaman, who's we talked about earlier, Randy's just done so much in the Pacific in general. And, we tend to think of him as an ethnobotanist, but he's also collected fish and stuff and added them to the collection at IMR. Who else? I wrote down a few names. Suliana Sawatambao, for instance. I co-authored a book with Sunil Prasad on the insects of Fiji. There's just so many people out there now that it's kind of difficult to name them all. But we're all united in this enthusiasm for saving as much as we can of Fiji nature while we still can.
Absolutely, while we still can. We know for acknowledging those who you have just mentioned there, some of the names here that you mentioned, Randy Thaman, Suliana Siwatimbao, Fergus Clooney, Dick Watling, Nunia Moko, Vilikesa Masbalabu, and I'm sure someone here mentioned Choeli Vitayaki. Did your path crossed with him, Choeli Vitayaki? From USP?
Only peripherally, not
Okay. But it's just wonderful to see that collaboration, that you're all working together and supporting each other. Is that kind of a common ground that you often try and work with when you are working with other people, Paddy, in Fiji? Is that common in the Pacific?
One of the things that annoyed me when I was teaching at USP was we would get overseas consultants visiting, like doing work on Manasabu, and they would just come and pick our brains. And the results they were presenting in their reports were basically based on local folks' knowledge. And I think one of the good things now is that that's starting to disappear, and we as in Fiji is doing a lot more of its own consultancy work, beginning to appreciate that we have the expertise within Fiji. Can I give you a very quick anecdote, if you don't mind?
Go for it.
As you know, I used to write a weekly nature column in the Fiji Times. I did it for like 350 columns. They don't want me now because they won't pay me, and I won't do it for free, which is sad. But where was I? Sorry, I just had a mental blank. About the consultancies and things. I've totally lost my track here, but it's really, that's right. After I left Fiji, I went back to New Zealand, and while I was in Fiji, I was just one of the lads, ran hash shows on Monday nights, stuff like that. But after I got back to New Zealand, all of a sudden I became an overseas expert. And I actually got invited as a keynote speaker to the Fiji Tourism Convention in Dinera. I was exactly the same person I was when I was living in Fiji, but apparently a year outside Fiji suddenly turned me into an expert that I wasn't when I was living in Fiji. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was delighted to be invited to speak. It was wonderful. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I thought it was kind of sad that my expertise wasn't recognized while I was living in Fiji.
Absolutely. And I think you really touch a very important point there, that now we have experienced experts in Fiji. And I think for this kind of Talanoa session, it's really important to bring up the fact that they need recognition for the amazing work that they do, and they need to be acknowledged publicly, and also through this kind of invitation. As you said, you have to leave Fiji, and then they recognize you and then come back. It's like you're the same person. You were here years ago, but nobody even wanted to look at you or invite you, right?
I think you've encountered that, Teresi.
I have.
Yes.
I have. Yeah. And I think that needs to change. That when we are in Fiji, we need to be valued for who we are, especially for many of us who are educated at USP. There's always the notion that the outsiders or those who come in are more experienced or have more expertise, right, than those who are in Fiji. And I think that needs to change, because sometimes, as you said, the ones that are coming in, they're only coming in for 6 months, right, 9 months. They just pick our brain and off they go, print their book, they become the expert of Fiji outside of Fiji. Have you encountered many of those?
Yeah, I think Fiji's woken up to this to some extent, which is great, because in the bad old days, people would come to Fiji, they would collect plant specimens, or they would collect sponge, chemicals or whatever. They'd take them out of the country, and that would be it. Fiji lost that intellectual property pretty much forever. But the subsequent Fiji governments have recognized that this intellectual property is hugely important. And it's now much more difficult for overseas researchers to get away with that sort of what is essentially being pirates,
Yes.
essentially. And it also means that a lot of overseas researchers are now working with local researchers to both their benefits, And I'd like to mention Rob Fisher here, who's a friend of mine who's done a lot of work on Fijian iguanas and lizards and things. And he's worked really well with a team of locals and included them on some of the publications. And that's the sort of research that I'd love to see continuing, because some places overseas have many more resources than we have in Fiji. Sorry, I keep calling myself we, but as you know, I'm not a Fiji citizen, and I'm
That's
not
okay.
Fiji right now.
We welcome you now.
But you know what I mean. I mean, they have access to superb research labs. Many of them have been working in that particular field for decades, and that sort of institutional knowledge is priceless, and you can't just pick that up and transfer it to Fiji. So, when you have Fijian locals working with people like that, it's to everybody's benefit, I think.
Yes, very good. It's a binaka wakalebo. And I think, bringing back the topic of indigenous knowledge and also the language, most of the time our local villages, are just used as guides. But it's amazing when you're walking into the forest, they started naming trees, right? They start naming birds in their own dialect. But sometimes they don't really know that the people that they're with, record this information and usually take them with them without acknowledging them. So I really want to highlight the point of co-authorship. So thank you for mentioning that. Is that something that you would like to see more of, to see for local people to be recognized?
Most definitely. It's also a sense of ownership as well. I mean, if somebody from outside comes in and tells you something's important, you just shrug your shoulders. But, if you've studied it, I mean, I heard a lovely radio interview with Nunya Moko on Radio Australia, and she was saying that she was frightened of lizards and frogs when she was a kid. And now here she is, one of Fiji's leading researchers in that field. And that's the sort of thing that I love to see happen.
Vinaka Bakalewe. So I know there's a lot of parents who are listening in, and Vinaka Bakalewe Kimnina Sematikumai. One gentleman you mentioned, Paddy, is Bilikasa Masimbalawe, and we had the pleasure of hanging out together at our farm in Namosi, even though it wasn't planned, but it was a blessing the day you all arrived. So for those of you who are listening in, Wilikasa Masimbalabu is from Netasiri, and he's, as you said, the only ornithologist, right, in Fiji, and he's indigenous Itoke with that expertise. Would you like to share a little bit more about, seeing Wilikasa's work and the recognition too that he deserves, but we need more Fijians to follow him?
Well, I've only spent time with Wilikasa twice. Twice. And he led us, myself and Elisabetta, to some forest in back of Pacific Harbour. A very modest man, a very modest man who just doesn't push his immense knowledge, and he knows every Fijian bird call. He knows their habits. He knows how to catch them. And now I'm pleased to see that he's starting to get international recognition. As you probably saw from his Facebook posts, he's just come back from time in Samoa. Spent time up in the high mountains in Savaii, which, I spent a lot of time in Samoa doing a lowland ecosystem survey. I was a photographer for a study group that went there, but I never got into the high mountains like Wilikasa has. And he's very happy to share his knowledge, but you've got to kind of prod him to get it out, because he's such, like I said, he's such a modest man that he doesn't like to push himself at all.
Wow.
If you're watching this, Wilikasa, I hope you're not too embarrassed, mate, but that's the truth.
Sadia na Sara, vinaka communicated na vevekani vatake na turanga naita vilkesa masibalavo ke vakai vakarong tiku mengosi ni rani wasiani buana video ngo kero be vaka vini vinaka taki koe and non kila ka vaka tamera member leta na be manu buka so e kila vinaka koe ni tangi ni manu e kila vinaka talanga koe na yada ni manu kila vinaka talanga koe na bonu tiko kina na be manu buka kero be babri bina kai ni bat ki Dr Paddy be koya neta vilkesa binaka baka lebu turanga neta. Thank you so much for all the amazing work that you do, and you deserve a gold medal. You deserve recognition for the work that you do. And Paddy, when we were there in Namosi, he had one request for me that day. He said, Marama Bunwai, Dr. T, if you can be able to help me find more young Fijians, maybe I'll include both genders, anyone who's listening in, who are interested to study birds, and they can understudy, work with him. So became ni tumbutumbu ni bakarong tikumai kaya kay tikum biya kanto na lubya mo ni totally taka na lako bika totally taka na manu buka takam biya ko na biologist lesson ni baka ya geography USP nanon rekor ni buli se dom biya kay tikum ko USP merabi tartar me bat kaya we baleta na scholarship na buli na kakatba sek ni sakraw na tambanan ko baleto ko tundu nga matatakati ko na tambanan ko na non da biti todo ko vina katoko me rua se tol se chinsar nang wani toki mer laki buli da mai non buli ni koroi ni buli ni manu buka. There you go, Paddy. I'm just reiterating what Vilikes asked me, not once, not twice. I think must have been 3 times. The importance of having, younger up and coming researchers to fill in the space when he eventually will retire. So that's. Would you like to say something to that effect, Paddy, especially in your field as a biologist?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you've got to start the kids as young as possible. And there are many children who express an interest in nature very early on. I didn't even know you could be a professional biologist. When I was a kid, I just wanted to be a vet because I thought that was the only way you could work with animals. And I don't think it was till I was in the 6th form that I suddenly discovered that I could actually be a professional zoologist. And that was a real eye-opener for me. But, I'm quite sure there are a lot of biologists in Fiji who are quite willing to come out to schools and give talks. Next time I'm in Fiji, if schools are in session, I'm always happy to come and give a brief talk to any class on anything to do with Fiji biology, with which I'm which I'm competent to comment on, because there are some things I'm not.
But that's just so admirable, that you're able to adapt, to situations, and especially with the book that you're writing, you are, working with nearly every fauna, right? Even flora. Shall we just stick with the fauna? Has there been any specific interesting animal that you found in Fiji that people need to know?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. Mostly they've been known by scientists, but most people don't know them themselves. For instance, there's a thing called a tailless whip scorpion. It only grows to about yay big, but it's only been found from one cave in Fiji. And the villagers themselves who went into the cave with me didn't appreciate, well, perhaps appreciate's not the right term. I showed them one of the ones I was looking for because I wanted to get photographs of it, but they didn't get it. They kept finding other spiders and pointing other spiders out. But there was one guy there who absolutely got what I was looking for, and he found another one for me, and he got it. And that guy, I'd love to have told him more about this animal so he could show other visitors to the cave. But and that often happens. I mean, we work under the assumption that because you're a Fijian villager, say living on the coast or whatever, that you know everything that's around you, but that's just not the case. I found you had posted photos of Bololo a little while ago, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never tried it, but Bololos are the reproductive structures of a polychaete worm. Well, polychaete worms are nearly all found in the ocean, but I found some living inside the leaf bases of Vandra, of pandanus, up around Suva. And these are tiny, tiny little worms that they're not supposed to be living up trees. They're supposed to be living in the sea. And they weren't a new species. They've been reported from Papua New Guinea, but it was the first time they've been reported from Fiji. Wow. And I found a couple of crabs that were, and when I say I found, the locals have known about them forever, right? So I didn't find them, the locals found them, but I brought them to scientific attention. And so one of them in Taveuni has now been described as a new species. And the other one I found in, I can't remember the Fijian name for it. It's not voi voi. It looks like voi voi, but it grows in the mangroves and down on the river mouths. And I found this little crab that's a new record for Fiji living up in there. And there are a few other things like that. There's what do they call it? A vinegaroon, a thing called a vinegaroon. It's a little animal that grows to about this big, and it's got big raptorial appendages, but it doesn't. And I've only seen one in the entire time I've been looking, so they're pretty rare, but they're pretty interesting. And of course, Fiji has scorpions. I mean, it's got 3 species of scorpion here that I know of. I've found 2 of them, but I've never seen the 3rd species. But Fiji's got lots of really, really cool stuff. It really does. It's a wonderful place.
Yeah, look at that. And that's really true. How even for us in Fiji, we don't even know what's in our backyard. And I think our Talanoa today will encourage many of us to appreciate our trees, appreciate our animals, our birds. And I know many of us have totems, that are connected to our koro, our matangali, our yabusa. And so I think our Talanoa today will really bring home this kind of knowledge, that is really important. If we don't talk about it to our children, if we don't share it, it'll disappear. What do you think, Pete?
Yeah, I think all of that knowledge is important. Culture is important. It's very, very important to have roots in your culture. I mean, one of the problems I have is that I don't really have cultural roots. I'm a white Anglo-Saxon. My grandfather was supposedly partly Irish. I spent most of my life traveling to different places. I think that's one of the reasons why I've long considered Fiji as home, because there was just something about Fiji that made me feel like this is it, this is my home. And I think it's very, very important to try and learn those cultural roots. I mean, one of the things I really like about New Zealand now with Te Reo Māori is the fact that, Māori is now an official language of New Zealand. And there's my daughter can speak semi-reasonable Māori. I mean, I think that's absolutely fantastic. And I think it's very, very important, because how can you be a New Zealander without understanding the culture that was there for 400 or 500 years before you turned up,
Wow, that's absolutely true. Thank you for that. So would that be your daughter, Lucy?
Yes.
Wow, she's beautiful. And thank you for sharing your family with us. Just getting to know you, Pat, it's like we know your whole extended family. And so you're part of Fiji now. You can change that.
I've got to mention my Kaiviti daughter, Sarah. She was born at CWM, so I do have a Fijian daughter.
Yay! Wow, that'll be on her birth certificate, forever.
Yep. Forever.
Forever. So now let's go back to the crab you mentioned, and the special crab in Taveuni. Why is it so special?
Well, simply because it's found nowhere else.
Wow.
It looks somewhat similar to a species that's found elsewhere, but it's been determined that it's only found in Taveuni. It used to be considered a species that was widespread throughout Southeast Asia, but now we know that's not the case. Yeah, it's the one you see on the trails to Buma, to the falls there, and the locals, always pointed out to visitors, which is very cool.
Wow, that's great. Wow. Yes, to our listeners listening in from Taveuni, yeah, there's so much to celebrate about, and we're so blessed that we have Dr. Paddy with us, sharing with us some of the some of the species that are so unique to Fiji. Even we're just talking about the fauna, yeah. What about the flora? Any interesting plants or trees that
Oh yeah,
is unique to Fiji?
there's some really cool stuff. There's two species of a plant called Digenaria. It was named after a guy called Otto Degener who came here in the 50s. But the family is only Degeneriaceae, and it's only found in Fiji. And there's only these two species, and they're considered to be really ancient. They're considered to be like survivors from the dinosaur age, which is. And I'm not suggesting Fiji is as old as the dinosaur age. I'm just saying that that's where they're kind of considered to be from. And then there's a whole bunch of palms, which Dick Watling has described in his Palms of Fiji. And of course, there's Tangamothea, which is, I hate to break it to the good folk of Taveuni, but it's also found on Vanuatu. So it isn't just...
Zirinbua?
Yeah, it's not just restricted to Taveuni. And they found another species of Medinilla, the genus it belongs to, right next to the airport in Kindavu. Vunasea, just growing up in one of the trees right next to the airport. So, people, I'm not much of a botanist. To me, plants, well, they're all green unless they've got flowers, and they all look pretty much the same to me. I can hear some of my biological friends go, that's horrible. But, people like Randy Thaman, but I admire their ability to tell plants apart. I look at two species and I go, they're the same, aren't they? And they go, no, look how different they are. Look at the leaves on this one. See how there's a point on this one and there isn't on this? And I go, oh, okay. Whereas with animals, I find it much, much easier. Yeah, so there's some cool Fijian plants as well. One of my challenges in the writing of the rest of the book, I've rewritten all the chapters. I'm starting on the reptiles probably this weekend, and then I've got birds, and then I start on the plants. And the plants is going to be a challenge for me because, but not so much because Randy Thaman wrote that really great guide to the plants of on USP campus on the herbarium. And Suliana Suwatamba's done work on the medicinal plants, and there are other books there. I mean, there's an incredible series called Flora Vitiensis Nova, and every single plant that was known at that time is described in that book. So my job isn't to repeat what much better people than me have already done. Instead, I'm just going to pick the eyes out of it. I'll do a bit on the introduced plants. I'll do a bit on the mangroves in particular. I'm particularly interested in mangroves, so I'll make sure that all of the mangrove plants get a good mention. And there'll be a little bit on medicinal plants, but the plant section won't be as comprehensive as the animal section. But the animal section is really, really comprehensive. I mean, I've spent a long time chasing up references, and it's going to be a big surprise to a lot of people who read it, because there's some stuff in there that just totally and utterly blew me away when I was reading about it. For instance, do you know that some spiders sleep and apparently they dream? They've actually took a video of these sleeping jumping spiders, and they actually focused in on the two big eyes that are at the front. And they were able to detect rapid eye movements within the spider eye, the same sort of rapid eye movements that humans have. And they saw their legs twitch at the same time as these rapid eye movements were happening. And it just totally blew me away. And then I read about some of the cone snails, some of the cone shells. Some of them, as you know, are deadly. They've got a really nasty harpoon and they kill fish very, very quickly. But there are other species which open up their mouth and they have this huge funnel which they create, and they actually squirt insulin at their fish prey, and the insulin screws up their sugar balance, and the fish just can't move. Oops.
Wow.
You just disappeared. Oh, well.
Oh, I'm still here.
Oh, you are? Good, because
Yeah, I'm still here.
I can't see you anymore.
Oh,
There you go. You're back.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
and
Wow.
they just suck the fish in. I mean, it's some of the stuff I'm learning about, and this has been a joyful journey for me. I mean, sometimes I get frustrated because it takes me 2 or 3 hours to write a paragraph, but sometimes, I haven't taught it now for 2 years, but I sometimes teach invertebrate zoology at Metropolitan State University of Denver. And the stuff I'm learning writing this book is going to be so useful if I ever teach that course again. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Wow. That
You
is
know,
amazing.
nature is infinite, and we're always learning something new. It doesn't matter
Yes.
how long you've been in this field, you simply cannot lose your sense of wonder when you're a biologist, because there's always something new around the next corner. And it's, I mean, something else I found out was that manta rays apparently appear to signal to each other with those cephalic horns, that the flaps that they have, that they steer food into their mouths with. And some research suggested that they might actually be communicating with each other. Well, they've got the biggest brain to body weight ratio of any fish. So, who knows? Maybe they're saying, oh, look at that stupid diver. Doesn't he look awkward?
They must be gossiping about us using their body.
Yeah,
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Perry. Just by talking about this, just a few, of these trees, plants, and creatures, it's just amazing. There's so much, yeah, out there in the world that we need to learn and appreciate about. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, there's some fascinating stuff. Fiji's got a bunch of plants called ant plants. I forgot to look up the Fijian name before, because I didn't know I was going to mention it. And there are a couple of species here that are found only in Fiji, and they're called ant plants because they produce these swollen leaf bases, and they produce this elaborate three-dimensional structure inside the base. And the ant colonies live in there, and they protect the plant from herbivores that would chew on the leaves. And it also provides a place for things like geckos and some things like scorpions to live as well, apparently. And just they're also found in the Solomon Islands and New Guinea, but yeah, Fiji has, I think, if I remember correctly, 4 species, and one that was recently described from Taveuni. So once again, Taveuni, it's got a species of palm that's only found there. Taveuni is, we've got to keep it mongoose free. If the mongoose gets onto Taveuni, we're in trouble. And if those, I'm allowed to say assholes here? Well, I already have. If those assholes that release the Central American iguana,
The iguana.
on Gamea, those guys should be put up. I'm really upset with that. That was such a dumb thing to do. Incredibly stupid.
Absolutely, yeah. That was just sad to see, yeah, what happened, and now those animals are living in the water and also on land.
Hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's been a lot of accidental introductions and deliberate ones. I mean, the African tulip tree is one. It's spreading everywhere. You've got them up in Namosi, as you know.
Yeah.
And there's this obnoxious white-footed ant, which is absolutely everywhere. You can't go into the forest now and have a look anywhere without getting covered in these obnoxious ants. They're spreading like wildfire. I hope they don't. I don't know if they're already into places like the Lao group. Actually, I've never been to Lao. That's one of the things
Oh.
I'm hoping to correct. But it's really a matter of money, because I'm paying for this myself right now, and I'm taking money out of my retirement funds to cover this. So I have to be careful with how I spend it, but I'll make it.
But speaking of funding straight there, we have some of our listeners here, who many of us, especially those who know what you do, what kind of support can we give you, or other support that, to help you in your venture, because the work you do is so important for Fiji.
Well, I think one of the biggest is maybe a welcome to the village and a place to stay in the village, and being shown stuff that the locals know about, because there are things that people don't know about. For instance, I can't remember the name of the island off the top of my head, but there's the red prawns, from Vatalele, but they're also found on
In Vonolevu,
Savasavu.
in Naweni.
Yeah, but there's another island where they're found apparently, and it'd be really exciting to go and see and make sure that they're the same shrimp. And I found that out through Facebook. One of my Facebook friends told me about that. Yeah, I mean, I obviously, like most people, I'd prefer to stay at the Sheraton, but actually that's not true. I find that a fairly artificial environment. I do like staying with people, locals, because you gain a lot more knowledge that way, and you get a much better idea of how they live. And you also get to see why Fiji is such a bloody good rugby playing nation too.
Absolutely. I have a very good idea now coming into my head. I better say it now and say it publicly. Maybe we should get Fiji Airways to sponsor you, if it's possible, for your flight from LA to Nandi, Nandi back to LA.
I wrote 2 letters to a guy who's supposedly responsible for that, and he didn't reply. I know he got the letters because, well, I don't know that he got them, but I didn't get them returned to me by Gmail. So I think one of the problems is that it's been 20 years since the second edition of the book. And what's happened is that people who've moved up into positions of power in businesses like Fiji Airways don't know who the hell I am. They've never heard of me. I'm just another guy looking for a free handout, supposedly.
This might be the opportunity. Let's follow up.
I mean, I've written 10 or 12 articles for the Fiji In-Flight magazine, the Fiji Airways In-Flight magazine. But now that it's gone digital and they're doing it in-house, I haven't written anything for them because nobody's asked me. But yeah, I mean, Fiji Airways is a great airline. The service is wonderful. The flight attendants are great. And, I wish them all the best. So I'm not being critical. I understand, I'm some Joe Blow who comes out of left field, out of nowhere. And like I said, the people that did know me have long since retired, unfortunately. Unlike me.
So don't worry. Now that we've done this Talanoa session, and I'm sure there will be friends listening in who have connections to Fiji Airways. If anyone listening in who has connection to Fiji Airways, please, we need to revise the letter or revisit the letter that was sent by Dr. Paddy, and we need to get it done. And I want to see it done, Paddy. And I'll make my own connection from here to make it happen, because your work you do is amazing.
One of the things I pointed out in my letter is that I can provide value in return. It isn't like I'm taking. I mean, I'm very happy to talk at any trade shows that Fiji Airways are presenting in the United States. And I could give them a really good presentation on Fiji nature, that might convince a few people to come here. And also, of course, I could also write some more articles for the digital in-flight. And I don't just write, I take videos. I've done a couple of video documentaries, and, all of this stuff I could share in return. So I try not to be a taker. I grew up in a culture where being a bludger was the worst thing you could possibly be, and I've always tried my best never to be a bludger. It's a good term, isn't it? Bludger. It's like bludgeoning somebody or whatever. I like it, bludger.
Wow, Vinaka Paddy. No, we'll definitely, make this happen, because I've seen, the benefits of it. I worked at the Fiji Museum. I've seen your book sold at the, at the gift shop. And it's also, one of those sought after books, and it's a very important resource. So you do this, and we need to support you.
Thank you. I did another little book, mostly with Sunil Prasad. It's a book on insects of Fiji. That was published by USP, and that can be found in a few places as well. It's a little book. Sunil was the lead author on it, but I provided him with a lot of photographs and helped write
Nice.
some of the chapters. So yeah, I'm co-author on that one as well.
Wow. Yes, now, in terms of writing, I know there will be folks who are listening in who may be wondering, like, how do you choose your topic, and how do you get started in terms of putting a book together?
Well, the book itself, Fiji's Natural Heritage, wasn't that difficult because I was trying to, well, it was in terms of getting the information, but I was intending to cover everything. And I didn't in the first couple of editions. This time I've pretty much not left anything out. So that's one of the reasons why there's so many extra pages. So that's not particularly difficult. I'm writing another book now called The Joy of Fish, and it's just based on my experiences with different fish species. For instance, I was lucky enough to do a number of dives in Lake Malawi in Africa. It's the third biggest lake in Africa, and it's home to over 800 species of little cichlid fishes. That's as many fish in one freshwater lake as there is in the whole of the Caribbean. And I was lucky enough to dive with them, and also with the electric fishes that Sir David Attenborough covered in Planet Earth. And so I've written a chapter on that, and I've written another one on mantas, and I've written another one on pipefish and so on. So, it's not covering all fish, it's just covering my personal experiences and my enthusiasm for the things that I'm writing about. Once again, I don't yet have a publisher, but University of Hawaii Press published my Snorkeler's Guide to the Coral Reef like 20 years ago now. But I'm hoping that when I've finished it, I'm going to tout the manuscript to them and see what happens. So we'll see. But as far as my weekly Fiji Times articles went,
Yes.
all I needed was some mention of something, in the news or whatever, and bang, I would think that was interesting, and I'd go check it out and follow it up. For instance, you might, sorry if I'm talking too much, interrupt me.
That's okay.
Once I get going, I'm unstoppable. I know you've been following my Ryan Photographic Facebook page, so you probably saw the photos I posted of White Sands National Park, those beautiful white sand dunes. Well, it turns out that 16,000 years ago, there was a lake bed there, and they discovered human footprints alongside that of extinct ground sloths and other things. And they've now dated those to 16,000 years, which is significantly pre the so-called earliest colonizers, which were supposedly the Clovis people. So we've pushed back the colonization of North and South America by about 4,000 years. And that sort of news report is like, oh, wow, that's fascinating. I've got to find out more about it. And then what I try and do is put it into more simple language so that everyone can access.
Absolutely. I have a question here from one of our listeners in terms of the Fijian book, the one you were holding earlier on. What is the focus of that book? Is it just the flora and fauna, or there are other living things that are included?
Oh, no, it's Fiji's Natural Heritage translated into Fijian.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the last edition, just translated into Fijian. But I don't know where to get copies because the person that was supposed to distribute them in Fiji stole them.
Wow. Okay. Do you think that still can be resurrected somehow?
If we could find the stash, yes. But if I do get the third edition published, it will definitely either be published in hardcover if I get the money, or failing that, if it's just too expensive to do, we'll produce an interactive PDF, and we'll make sure a copy goes to every school in Fijian.
Oh, we'll definitely see if we can be able to track where the stash is. And Fiji is a small place, we'll find it.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, if you send some Fijians to find those, we did it for 3,000 years, we'll find it.
Oh, one other thing, somebody said to me, it's maybe you should translate it into Hindi as well. And I actually thought that was a good idea because it's important for everybody in Fiji to understand a lot about the environment. I don't know whether we can justify a hardcover edition, but certainly I would be very happy about the idea of having it as a PDF, interactive PDF. With an interactive PDF, I can link to my own videos that are on Vimeo. You know, I recently, you saw it on Facebook, I think, but I recently posted a short video of a snake that isn't the Dandakalavi. It's another sea snake. It's not the Dandakalavi. It looks like it, a little bit like it, but it isn't. You know, being able to put links to videos like that are on Vimeo that I put there would be wonderful. And my daughter Lucy, I don't think she'll be watching this right now, even though I told her it was happening. But I have to face my own mortality. Even when I die, I'm going to get Lucy to continue to maintain the subscription to that site. So the links that are in a PDF like that will still continue to be good for maybe another 40 or 50 years.
So man, Paddy, for your dedication. And Lucy, if you're listening, please know Fiji is your home. If you need to come to Fiji, just let us know. We'll be happy to host you and give you the support that we've given Dad. And we need to give Dad more support now. So I have a long list of things to do. And Elizabeth Wanga is listening right now. So she and I are going to work together to make sure that Fiji Airways sponsor your trips. And we'll find the stash of books that is missing. And we'll also talk to Itoke Trust Fund to look into printing those books. And we're going to make it happen, Paddy.
That would be fantastic. Oh, Lucy and Luke went on their honeymoon to Paradise Taviuni. Lucy loves Taviuni too. So, yeah.
Oh, sabi kami ka na parang may Taviuni. I'm sure our Talanoa with Paddy, there's a lot of references to Taviuni, and no wonder, it's a garden island of Fiji. And we love everybody in Taviuni. We love the trees and the animals, and of course the people. It's just amazing, yeah.
I love Kandavu and the Natewa Peninsula and Namosi and Monasavu and lots of other places as well. But I just happened to mention that because Taviuni is kind of a biological hotspot. Yeah,
absolutely. That's just amazing. And you know what? I'm just talking to you now. I'm realizing that it looks like we might have a Paddy Ryan session, part 1, part 2, and part 3 coming up because the questions that are coming through is just amazing. A lot of our folks are just so interested in what you're talking about. And, down the line, if you have some time, because I know both you and I teach full time, but I'll be happy to schedule some other times down the line to talk about the different species you talked about. It's just so amazing and fascinating.
I mean, I'd love to do that. And, if as this is through Zoom, if you wanted to, we could share screen and I could show a couple of videos of, some of the things I'm talking about, which would, make it more exciting than the Paddy talking head sitting here against this cabbage coral background.
Is there anything you want to talk about regarding that beautiful coral behind you?
Well, funny you should say that. That was photographed in Kandavu. It's a beautiful patch of cabbage coral. There's another lovely patch of it on the Rainbow Reef in Taviuni. It's quite commonly found in Fiji, but one of the things about it is it tends to grow in these patterns, so it can take over, it can dominate quite a large area. Whereas most of the corals in Fiji, they're intermixed, but these cabbage corals can take over, and they're really lovely. They're really beautiful.
Wow, that is amazing. So would that be in the Australia Reef in near Ono?
Yes. Although, no, this was actually photographed. Oh gosh, forgive me, I've forgotten the Fijian name. Mount Washington.
In Nambukalem.
Yeah. So not too far from one of those surf resorts. I was diving with a really amazing Fijian dive guide who was Joeli, I think his name was. I can't remember.
Because that's where I'm. That's close to my village. So yay! It's towards Nambukalem.
Some amazing diving there. I saw my first and only great hammerhead shark there. It was one of those goosebumpy experiences. Yeah. You got me all
Wow.
hyped up now. I'm all excited about getting back and taking more photos. And yeah,
Oh man, yeah, no, this is just awesome. Most of us follow your page. Tell us what pages you have so that people can go right now and like your
sure.
page.
Well, I've got Paddy Ryan, which is my personal Facebook page. I won't discourage people from friending me on there. It's just that I've got 2,500 followers now. I try not to turn down any of my Fijian requests because Fiji is so important to me.
Mm.
But I also find that sometimes in Fiji, just because you've accepted their request, people think it's just fine to phone you, 5 minutes later, and you're about to go out and give a lecture or something, and you have to very gently say, "Look, I'm sorry, I can't talk now. Maybe another time." But my
Oh,
Ryan Photographic Facebook page has. I'm hoping to crack 14,000 followers. I'm way behind you. You got what, 17,000 now? That's awesome. I'm on about 13.8, I think, but I would love some more Ryan Photographic
sure.
Facebook page followers, if possible. I'm not sure
Okay.
why. It doesn't do anything.
But that's very important. For those of you watching, please go to Facebook and like Dr. Paddy's other page. Yeah. What's the name of the page again?
It's Ryan Photographic.
Okay, Ryan Photographic. Yeah, so very important. Please go now and like the page because that's what
Good.
he does. A lot of amazing posts. I follow, and also we have a sister who lives in Dubai, Safaira Ogden. She follows your page religiously, so you've got some fans watching right now.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So and Elizabeth is online. Her question is to you, Dr. Paddy. Ready for the question?
Yep.
Does this mean Laos is still an undiscovered paradise?
Yes.
So she's from Laos, Vinaka. So, Elizabeth, you got the answer? Yes. Okay. So, yeah, via Ranilamba, Ryan Photographic. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Ryan Photographic. So, if you type it on your
Two
computer,
words. Two words. RYAN and then photographic.
okay. Ryan Photographic. Yep, that's correct, Viola. So, go for it. So, anybody from Laos, um, you will be the last province to be visited by Mark
Yeah,
Paddy.
it's funny. I've been to Rotuma twice, not for very long, but at least I've been there. Yeah, that's beautiful too.
Wow. Yeah, see, that's another one. So yeah, Lau, Wawa Lau, your turn will come. So be patient, eh? Be patient. Yes, man, Paddy, vinakava level for Talanoa today. I know you have other things to go to because it's late in the evening for you and also for me. Any last word of advice, particularly for our young ones who are interested to go into the field of biology, but also, acknowledging and writing about our flora and fauna in our indigenous languages, and even Hindi and Ratuman? What would be your advice to them?
Well, my advice would be to read as much as you can. Um, that's really how I got started. I read some amazing books. There's a British author called Gerald Durrell, and he wrote a book called My Family and Other Animals. And as a kid, I read that and I laughed until snot came out of my nose. I mean, some of it was so damn funny. And he was just looking after animals that he found. He was living in Corfu in Greece, and he wrote a whole bunch of other books too about collecting animals in other places. So yeah, I would look for books like that. I would look online. I'd be careful where you look online. There's a lot of bad information. There are good information. I would just the bush or out onto the Auckland and just of everything around you. I mean, I people hate it when I dive with them because, well, on one dive in the Sea of Cortez, I got about 30 meters away from shore. It was a shore dive, and I stopped and I spent the whole hour of the dive in like 5 meters of water just looking at this small bommy that was 2 meters long and a meter wide. And at the end of that hour, when the others came back, I'd seen all sorts of really cool stuff that I wouldn't see otherwise. So I do have a talk called "Stop and Smell the Roses," and it's actually a plea to take things slow and to just sit and listen and watch. Yeah. while you're fighting off the mosquitoes.
Yeah, that is wonderful. And these talks are face-to-face talks, or can it be online?
It can be online. I just did an online talk yesterday via Zoom called Dangerous Marine Creatures, and it was basically how to treat marine injuries. Not that they're that common, but yeah, I do have a bunch of prepared PowerPoints. So yeah, we can talk about this somewhere else.
Beautiful. Yeah, definitely. See, for those who are watching, follow Dr. Paddy's page, professional page, which is the Ryan Photographic. He needs more people in there to follow and see what amazing photography that he has done. So he's a biologist by trade, but he wears other different types of hats. So he's a writer, he's an author, and also he's a photographer. So he combines all this passion, right, into
And
all these
personal
things.
trainer.
That's amazing. And personal trainer. Yeah. Look at him. He looks like he's 16 years old.
You've been wonderful, Teresi. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I know you you kind of took me under your wing in Namosi, and I really appreciated what you had to say to me then. Do I have one more minute to share one more quick story?
Yes.
Okay. Well, as you know, when we went up to Namosi, when you guys weren't there, we went to 2 villages for Severs. And in one of them, the Taranganakora wasn't there, but somebody else was, and they accepted our Sever. But his daughter was teaching in the local school, and she told me that my book, Fiji's Natural Heritage, not the Fiji language version, but she said it was the kids' favorite book. She said they would take it out of the library, they would open it up, and they would run their fingers over the photographs. And it was a be still my beating heart moment. It was like, that makes everything I've ever done worthwhile to get that story. I mean, I was inspired by people who came before me. I had people who taught me really cool stuff and recognized my enthusiasm and channeled it and nurtured it. And basically, I'm trying to pass that on, play it forward, pass it forward.
So, wow, man. Dr. Paddy, on behalf of all of us who are listening now, and there's still so many people asking questions, but follow his page and you can, talk to him offline. But we're just so grateful that you're able to celebrate the Fijian Language Week with us in style, in your beautiful bula shirt that was given to you in Teveuni. But I'm so proud that the picture behind you is from Kadavu. So I'm so happy. And Elisabetta says she's going to unfollow you unless and until you have Lau on the map for your research.
Well, thank you so much, and toso viti toso, and we'll do this again sometime, hopefully. I've loved it. Thank you so much.
All the very best. We send our love to you in Colorado, and we'll be in touch again. And let's cheer for Fiji. Vinaka.
Thank you, Teresa. You're wonderful. Thank you so much for what you do.
Vinaka.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Naka. Wow, that's wonderful. To everybody who's listening in, yes, definitely his heart is on Fiji. So everyone knows that we have to adopt him. At the moment, he's wearing the Taviuni shirt, so he's part of Taviuni. But I want to take him to Kandavu. But everybody will want a piece of Dr. Paddy. Yeah? For your support, listeners, to our talk today. I'm just so grateful that Dr. Paddy can be able to sit here with me for an hour. Just to share a little bit, a little snippet of the amazing work that he does for Fiji, and writing the book that he's writing at the moment. So we look forward to the launch, and he will keep us posted. So if you go to his page, you will see some other work that he's been doing over the years, and we get to appreciate the contribution that he has done for our beautiful country in Fiji. Pinakawakalev everybody for listening in. Pinakawakalev Dr. Paddy and Nisa Mwade from beautiful United States of America. Ni Mwade.
Bye-bye.
Mwade.